Video showing you the process that you need to take in order to make changes or updates to a project on GitHub if your local software editing tool like VS Code doesn't allow you to clone the remote repository. So first thing, just to verify that process is not working, what you would want to do is basically set up a new workspace. I'm going to call this test. I'm just saving this on my desktop to show the process. And then if you have GitHub installed and you are seeing just one button here under source control, just to add folder to workspace, you should actually be seeing one more button down here that says clone from repository. Sometimes that button takes a few seconds extra to update. I'll show up here. And if it doesn't show up, one thing to check is that you have authenticated with GitHub. So you want to go down to the status bar, click on the warnings and errors, click on output, and then change this over to GitHub authentication. And make sure that this says that you are connecting. So that's one thing to check. The other thing would be to check down here at the gear and make sure that you don't have a restart for updates. So I'm going to check for updates here. I shouldn't see anything. No updates available because it just updated. Next thing to check or test will be in extensions. Double check that you have the Git extensions installed. So the primary one is this Git extension pack, which is going to install Git history, project manager, Git lens, and Git ignore. The other thing to test is, again, down here at the status bar in the terminal. There's a built-in prompt here, and you want to just verify that you have Git installed on your computer. So when you type in Git, you should see this feedback that shows you how to start a new repository and clone one into a directory. So for those of you that are having an issue, now you can see this took a few seconds, probably a minute actually, most of the time of me recording the video, in order to see this clone repository button. Clone repository once the Git extension has been activated. So if you're still not seeing this after a minute or two, we could actually clone the Git repository using the terminal. So I can walk you through that step right here. So first thing you'll want to do is come over here to GitHub, and we want to go to the project. I'm going to go to the How Much More version here. And then over here in the green button, there's a clone section. We can just highlight that URL and copy it. And assuming you don't have this button, what we will want to do in the terminal, I'll blow this up here so you guys can see it, is we want to clone the repository into a new directory. So I know most of you probably haven't used the terminal too much. So the command we want to do is we want to change directory. So we're going to say cd for change directory. Then we come over here to the Finder, and we're going to find the directory that we want to make a folder for this repository. So wherever you save this workspace, mine is actually on the desktop. I'm going to call this test GitHub for you guys, you'll want to put this into wherever your class files are and make a well, I guess you probably don't want to make a folder, because this, when you clone the repository, it's going to make a folder for the project. So let's say you're over here, Web Design 3. We want to actually go up one directory. So if you hold down Control, you can navigate up one folder from where the class folder is, because we want to change directories into that folder. So long and short, we want to type in CD in the terminal, and then you should be able to drag that folder to the path to the graphic design 252 web design folder, hit return. So now you're going to notice the prompt changed. So instead of just my name, it's now showing me the folder. So the next command you can type in, just to verify, you can type in pwd, and that is a command called path to working directory. So you can see this is your user folder, user, my sync to OneDrive folder, and then the course folder. So this is where I want to clone. So now I'm going to just double check I have that URL, and I can type in git clone and paste in the URL. And then I'm going to hit return. And what should happen over here in the Finder is we should end up with a new folder. So in this case, HMM_prod. And it might take a minute or two. It's downloading 800 files almost, 34 megs so far. So when that is all done, you should see receiving objects and then done. So now, over here in the folder we just cloned, HMM_prod, you should see all the files and folders for the project. So go ahead and close your Git extension pack here, close the output. Back here in File Manager, we will just add that folder. So we're going to come over here to the course, we're going to find HMM_prod, and add. So now, if everything goes to plan, you should have at least the current changes for your site. And just to be sure, down here in the status bar, hit this refresh to synchronize any changes. You're going to do that frequently to push and pull any updates. So that is one tactic in order to get working on the project. So for instance, if I wanted to make a change to the README file, I put in here, let's just put in a copyright 2020, design. That, so I made one change. And now over here in source control, shows me the change, which I have to add to my staged changes by clicking the plus. And then I need to commit and put in a commit message. Then once I've committed, I need to hit synchronize again. I have no changes to come down, one change to go up. Click on that. It's just a second. And what should happen in the background is when you go to HMM and readme.md, we will see in a second or so that new line that I added at the bottom. So it sometimes takes a second. If it still doesn't show up here under source control, we're going to just intentionally push our change. And there, now we see that new line showing up here on the site. So any of your changes like that, definitely just double check that you've pushed. Now, over here in the repository, so I'm in the project, I should see at the bottom of the README that same line of text. So if none of that works for you, you have your account here on GitHub, you can just edit these specific files. So it has a basic text editor. It's not going to be a fancy code editor or anything like that. But if, let's say, I wanted to put a space in there, notice here it says commit changes. I'm going to commit directly to the branch and hit commit. And now my space is present there. If I come over here to HMM, now that space has been committed but not pushed. So take a look here. Not sure if this is going to show us changes. Or if there's a process on here to push. That might be a little bit of a snag for us. At a minimum, you should be able to at least update that. For everyone else, if you do take a look now at the synchronize, you'll see one change to come down. If I click on that, and I've got my readme open here, click on that, I should see that update now with the space that I entered from the web browser. So the process then, if cloning manually or cloning through the terminal doesn't work for you, download the entire site as a zip here. Find this, put this over here. Save, archive. There's my zip file. If I unzip that, I get my HMM prod and main, because that's the branch I just downloaded. And this README should have the space like we're looking for. So now, technically, you should be able to just come back to VS Code, open a new workspace, add that folder, and at least start editing the pages. And go back over here, and as you make your changes and do your testing. So, for instance, I'm going to make a line break here, and I'm going to make this. Make this bold. And the markdown. So I made that change. I can select everything in the file, copy, come over here, go to the README, hit edit, select all, paste, and then commit my changes. Then everyone else working through Git should see your change next time they push and pull. Let's see, so I've got a change over here. I'm going to discard, so I made that change on the web. And now I'm going to push and pull, and now I pull that change down. Then for good measure, I can just push that all back to the server. And if I hit code again, you'll see, well, don't see the line break, but you see that in bold. So that kind of wraps up the process to just get going with this. One other thing you may need to do at home on your computers is update or set your Git username and email. And so you can do this through the terminal. And you will probably get a warning. I'll just do this git update. Email. So what we want to look for, let's see. Okay, GitHub, that's not official. So you want to use the Git username. So we're going to use the git command, config, setting the switch for global, the value, or so the parameter, and then the value. So at home, on your computers, and possibly on the school computer if it hasn't been set before, let me just go ahead and put in here your name. And then I sometimes put in what my computer is, so I know, okay, this is home, my laptop. And then you also need to configure your username, or sorry, your email address. So if you hit the up arrow in the terminal, you get your line that you had previously submitted. We're going to edit that so that it is git config -- global user.email, and then your email address does not have to be in quotes. So put in whatever email you used for GitHub, and that should set your username and your email. The reason we're double checking and doing this is within the project we can see who's been working and what they've done. So the issue I noticed this afternoon is we have a user who hasn't set their name, or it's been set as graphic design. So whoever this is, 21 commits attributed to them. I've got 20. Robert has a few on down the list here. So that is another great value to Git, and being able to track performance on a product. You can see issues, status that's closed, unresolved issues, who the contributors are, and the kind of traffic that's happening on any particular website or project. So you can see how many times pages have been viewed here on GitHub. So you can see the main page has some good stats and traffic. So I think that kind of wraps up. It's kind of a winding and rambling video here, covering quite a few different topics than I had originally planned, but I think this will be beneficial for those of you that need to contribute to GitHub projects in the future and run into that scenario where you're not seeing that clone repository. So I'm just going to test one more time, test 2. And then now that it's working the first time, it took a little while, but now it's working. I've got that clone button. I can just go find my repository. I can hit code, copy the URL, and then I just paste this in and I say clone from URL and use that URL. Click that, find the folder where I want to save it, select repository location, and now more than likely I'm going to end up with a HMM prod -1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on how many I have in that folder. So again, this might take a few minutes, depending on your internet connection, in order to download all those files in the project. See the blue status bar here. So we do want to add that folder to the workspace, and then voila, here you see our files. And then always when you first get started working on these GitHub-based projects or Git-based projects, make sure you do a courtesy push-pull. Make sure all of your new changes get brought down, and you should be good to go.